announcement in Washington. They guess what bill we were working on? National Defense Authorization Act. And I tell you what they did, there was a lot of, they say there needs a lot of compromise in Washington. Unfortunately, they had a lot of compromise in Washington this week, and they didn't do the right things. They actually made the bill worse. Where some of this arrested by the military was recommended, or it should be, now they must do it on some of these arrests. And we had the up and down vote on the amendment to strike that provision where the U.S. military is permitted and encouraged to arrest American citizens, not given a trial, and held indefinitely. And we couldn't even win that vote. We had about 180 vote with us on that, so it is, there's a growing number. But there was one vote that had to do with ending the war. I assume there's plenty of people here who would like to see us end a few wars and get our troops back. It came up again. It was last year. We had a pretty good vote on it to say, look, it's time to get busy, make a plan, get out of there. You have to be out in a year or so, or whatever it was. And last year we lost that vote only by a small. So guess what happened this year? They wouldn't allow us to bring it up because they knew we could win this vote. It was a great coalition of conservative Republicans and Democrats that came together on this issue that it was time to come in. So a lot of people say, well, Ron Paul, what are you doing? You don't seem to want to compromise. Well, I'll tell you what. You don't need to compromise if you're doing the wrong thing. You have to stand on your principles and get more people to agree with you. This week. It's called the Export-Import Bank, and I think it was $390 billion. I can't believe it was that big. So there was a big article in the Washington papers today saying, maybe there's a new time coming. They're working together now, Republicans and Democrats, both towards corporate welfare. So this isn't what needs to be done. We need to have people come together, and I've argued the case that we do come together in the defense of liberty and bring people together, whether liberals or conservatives or modest Republicans and all, come together and do the right thing. Why don't we just come together and all obey the Constitution? That would be a This week on the vote on Ex-Im Bank reminds me of one of the very early votes we had after Ronald Reagan was elected president in 1981. This came up, and there was a coalition of the Republicans and the conservative Democrats were working together. They were cutting things. Most of the time it was cutting the proposed increases, but anyway, it looked like things were getting cut. So I can remember one congressman getting up. He said, all right, you guys are cutting all this good welfare, all the welfare benefits. What we need to do is cut some corporate welfare. So he proposed that we cut, a large percentage of the Export-Import Bank. And it passed by over 100 votes. And I thought, wow, maybe we're on to something here. Maybe there will be a real difference in the 80s. And yet there was a lot of talk afterwards, and people who really were concerned about it got together, and they said, we can reverse this. We're going to reverse this vote. And the next day they had it. 100 people changed the votes and changed it and put the money back in. And I recall, this is so typical of what happens in Washington. The Washington Post was interviewing one member. He said, well, you voted, to cut it yesterday. Today you voted to put it back in. He says, does that mean your vote is up for sale? And the congressman, with a straight face, says, no, but it's up for rent. But that's about it. And that's why we need people of principle that will stand. And that's why I was, of course, very biased. I was glad to see my son win. Bills win. Montreal so long, I said, you know, being in D.C., this is depressing. I said, I need to go to Minnesota and get cheered up. Visiting the college campuses, you've heard me say many times, there is a revolution in ideas going on. And it isn't a narrow revolution. It isn't just sort of a conservative group of the Republican Party. It's much, much bigger than this. I am convinced that, you know, we have a good support in the Republican Party for this liberty idea and the liberty ideas. But I'm also convinced from traveling around the country, from the people I talk to, going through airports, that I am convinced for every vote we get in the Republican primaries, there's at least 2 out there that are independent or even Democrats who will look at these serious principles of limited government, personal liberty, less war, and doing something with the Federal Reserve System. Fiat money always ends, so it will end. I would like to see a smooth ending to it. That means I'd like to legalize competition, like legalize the Constitution. And let us why that issue has been so important to me is not only it fascinates me about monetary policy, but it's also related to our personal liberties. It relates to the Constitution. It relates to personal liberties. It explains how you can get away with financing without direct taxation. It's indirect taxation. So therefore, the entitlement welfare state grows, and also the warfare state grows too. And nobody quite sees who pays for it, because they can run up the debt, we can borrow, and the Fed prints the money to buy the debt. The people who suffer are invisible. They don't know exactly the ones, but I believe that people are waking up now to the fact that the elderly suffer, the middle class suffers, the unemployed suffer. It's all related to the fact that there are very powerful special interests behind the Federal Reserve, and guess what? It wasn't the middle class that got the bailouts. It was the big guys who made a lot of money, and they got the bailouts. Whether it's diminished through what they put in the National Defense Appropriation Act, Authorization Act, whether it's the Patriot Act, or whatever they're doing to do these good things for you, none of it can be financed without, you know, the shenanigans through the Federal Reserve System. So as government gets bigger, your liberties are diminished. And that is what government should be all about. Government should be very limited. And we should know precisely what the government should be there for. And the founders knew this. And it is not to manage the entitlement system. It is not meant to police the world. It was there to protect our liberties against any other